I'm at McLaren today to meet a very, very special car. Here, look at that! Next thing I want to show you is I'm a little bit excited because, as you can see, I'm at McLaren today to meet a very special car, a version of the Artura, a car I'm familiar with, but it's a bit different. Now, why is it different? Because, as you can see, McLaren offers its vehicles in a range of very bright, very ostentatious colours, if you want them. Here's just a selection of the lovely hues you can have your McLaren in. In fact, you can have your McLaren in any colour you like if you've got the money to pay for it. That's the level of customisation they'll offer. But clearly, none of these colours, or any of the colours you can think of, was quite bright enough for this particular Artura.
That's why McLaren enlisted First Nations artist Reko Rennie to make this McLaren completely unique. The car was revealed by Oscar Piastri at the 2025 Australian Grand Prix, but now I've been given a chance to get a little one-on-one time with this one-off McLaren.
Well, I've seen some bright McLarens in my time, but I have never seen one quite that in your face. So Reko Rennie, very famous Indigenous artist, famous for his designs that combine both geometric patterns. His diamond is something he's really known for, but also with inspirations of traditional Aboriginal paintings. And that is exactly what we have on this Artura here. As if the Artura wasn't stand out enough, McLaren has now gone and decorated it like this. It's absolutely stunning. Now, I don't just have to look at this vehicle because they've actually given me the keys to it. So we're going to take it for a drive as well. All right, we'll go with this one instead. There's obviously one car we have to just come and see quickly. I mean, McLaren's beautiful, yes, sensational, but they've clearly saved the best for outside here. Look at that! This is a serious Brumby. Wow. It's been raised, it's got a roll bar, it's got LED lights, it's got stainless steel mount. Oh, how cool is this? Wow, that is a serious Brumby. Inspo for our Brumby, maybe. Look how high it is. That's cool. Anyway, back to that's what we're actually here for. It's saying key not found in cabin. It's definitely here. Start. Okay, maybe we're not actually going anywhere in this car. Okay, that's on. It is apparently, it was a hybrid, isn't it? So it doesn't make any noise when it starts up. Until it actually starts up. This is the McLaren Artura. It is not a particularly new car anymore. It's been out for a few years. In 2022, this car got a significant revision along with the introduction of the Spider, the convertible version. This is the coupe, but it got all of the updates that the Spider introduced, including a refreshed infotainment system and actually quite a comprehensive all-round update, including more power. This thing now has just under 700 horsepower, 515 kilowatts. I can tell you that I had forgotten, I've driven this car twice before, I had forgotten how fast it is. It is bloody quick. Oh my God. Obviously it's a hybrid. It uses a V6 twin turbo in conjunction with quite a reasonable sized battery and a very respectable but lightweight motor for those incredible power outputs despite its size and weight. McLaren says 0 to 100 happens in 3 seconds. Bloody hell. And I firmly believe it. That is absolutely outrageous. McLaren's point of difference has always been weight, and this thing weighs less than 1,400 kilos. So for a car with just under 700 horsepower, 515 kilowatts, that is a pretty astonishing power to weight ratio. But lightweight doesn't just mean incredible acceleration, it means that when you get to the twisty bits, this thing is absolutely amazing. It changes direction just by thinking about it. But if you choose to change direction with the steering wheel, then McLaren insists on having electro-hydraulic steering, not just electric steering, and it is transformative. It just means that the nose of this car is so wonderfully communicative. It is so responsive. One of the other points you have to make about this car, and this I'd forgotten as well, is just how easy it is to live with day to day. That electric system makes cruising around at low speed effortless and quiet. You're not going to piss off your neighbours or anyone in built-up busy towns. It's also amazingly good in the ride as well. It's got adaptive dampers, but honestly, if you switch it to comfort mode, there are $40,000 hatchbacks that don't feel this comfortable on the road. It is such a nice car just to cruise around in. And also, I have to point out that the interior of the Artura is a lesson in ergonomics. It's just so lovely. There's so much thought put into everything. The steering wheel is perfectly positioned, almost vertical in front of me. The seating is just lovely. I feel like I was born in here. Even little things like, if you put your hand down to adjust the volume dial on the side of the 8-inch touchscreen down here, there's a little nook in behind for the 3 fingers that you're not using. It's just everywhere you look in this cabin, there's just evidence that everything was thought about, and I just love that about this car. It's got that incredibly bright and ostentatious exterior, and yet you can drive it around in pure electric mode completely silently. So on the one hand, it's shouting at you with its aesthetics, but it's completely whisper quiet as well. I really love that about this car. How much, you're asking? Well, that's a good question. This car, absolutely standard, not there's such a thing as a standard McLaren Artura, about $465,000, although I couldn't really tell you how much this particular one is worth because it's been decorated and customized by quite a renowned artist. So you could argue it's kind of got a very difficult value to put your finger on. But either way, I would say it's probably worth quite a bit more than your standard Artura now. Oh, and if you're wondering, before it had that beautiful wrap on the outside, it was grey. So I think we've gone a step in the right direction with its aesthetics. Do you like it? Personally, I love how much this car turns heads, but let us know in the comments below. This car has a number of personalities, and the joy of that is you pick whichever one depending on your mood from one day to the next. Today, I'd like nuclear. Oh, absolutely love it. And let's talk about the noise for a second. So everyone thought when McLaren was going to go for a V6 that was going to be the end of the world because it couldn't possibly sound like a flat plane crank V8, but just have a listen to that. It sounds fantastic. It's raw and that wonderful dry note. It doesn't sound like there's a turbo in the exhaust getting in the way. Oh my God. And then there's the brakes. It just keeps surprising me with its ability, time and time again. There's far more to this car than just skin deep beauty, but to show you exactly what I'm talking about, we're going to have to head to the Mad Garage. Now, it's about this point, if I was a motor journalist doing my day job, I'd probably cut to an exterior shot of the car and say something like, this is the most transformative thing McLaren's done in perhaps ever. But I'm a motor journalist with my own workshop, so that's when it all starts to get a little bit more Mad Garage. Well, this is an angle you don't get to see every day of a McLaren Artura, or any supercar for that matter, and the reason I wanted to show you this is because in a weird way, there's not a lot to see. It's almost completely flat. Like right the way from the front here and the very leading edge of that front splitter, all the way through to the back. Now that is obviously because aerodynamics are a huge part of everything McLaren does, including the Artura. There's loads more I want to show you up from the top and every other angle, but the most important place to start is under here, because the underside has an awful lot to do with how this car behaves so well at speed. So with a completely flat under tray like that, you can control the air flowing around the car so much better. Without any objects, it can't produce eddies or turbulence underneath here. The flow of air is really smooth. And if you start to get trouble and turbulence underneath the car, you can start to have pockets of lift and drag and all kinds of things that really aren't going to make you go very well at speed. So flat is best. There are a few exceptions though, and you'll notice one of those is when you get to the very back. How cool is this? So mostly you've got a combination of carbon fiber, plastic, and aluminium. And on this particular tray here, you can start to see some of these louvers that direct air to the diffuser at the back. So what that's trying to do is lower the pressure at the back to effectively reduce lift. So you can't eliminate lift completely from underneath the car. All you can do is put it where you least hate it. And that's what this is happening here. It's drawing air out of the underside of the car towards these diffuser vanes. A lot of cars you see a diffuser on the back and it doesn't do anything. It's purely a visual thing. But on this, on the Artura, it's actually doing a job. And this is where you can see how well it actually works. This is not just for show, this is real aerodynamics. Also, you see these little, almost like a NACAR slot here. And that's pulling air up to assist with brake cooling. So you want air to come in through here and exit through the wheel. Not too much, because again, you start to create all kinds of weird problems with turbulence and drag. But yeah, from under here, you can actually see the science of the aerodynamics really working. You've also got these little vents here. Now they're clearly for pulling in air for something. This is not just an accident, nothing McLaren does is, it's all very well thought out. So yeah, even under here, you've got these tiny little, that might be able to pull in something for cooling. It might be to move air up to another aerodynamic feature towards the top, but it's fascinating. Now, these bolts here, you'll notice there's a lot of bolts holding everything on under here. These ones are a little bit more significant. And the reason for that is, behind that, you can hear everything sounds a bit hollow until you get to here. And that's because that's where the battery resides. So 7-point-something kilowatt hour lithium ion battery. This car can travel about 30 kilometers on electric only. And that's where its battery is. Exactly where you want it. Weight distribution obviously really important on a car like this. So it's down low, as close to the floor as you can possibly get. And it's just 4 of the rear wheels. So it's kind of putting all the weight where you want in a mid-engine car along with its drivetrain as well. So how cool. More vents. Now this one is less difficult to decipher. These are obviously brake cooling vents. They pull air from really low down on the surface of the road and they shoot it straight through the caliper. Not into the disc, interestingly. It actually forces the air straight up to the pads, so where the actual friction surface is happening. And the clever thing about that is you try to eliminate cooling as the heat is actually being generated, rather than it being generated, moving around in the disc, and then you cool it down. So that's a much more effective way of dealing with excessive brake heat. It's carbon fiber monocell. It's basically been making that in various iterations since its very first road cars. But it doesn't make everything out of carbon fiber because it doesn't make sense. You want the bits that are, have crash durability and the people are inside to have ultimate strength. But then McLaren bolts on aluminium to the parts that are less important and, to an extent, disposable. So on the front of this vehicle, there's actually a whole aluminium crash structure. So that will take a majority of the brunt before it starts getting into the carbon fiber. And this is the point where you can actually see the two structures meeting, carbon fiber meeting the aluminium. Next thing I want to show you is just how light that wheel is. 19-inch wheels on the front of this Artura, 20-inch on the back, 235 35 ZR19s, and they are Pirelli P0. This is a specially developed tyre for the McLaren. And you can tell that because it says on here, look, MCC. It's only when you really start looking closely at the detail of a corner on the Artura like this that you really appreciate just how much work has gone into the engineering side, and I just love stuff like this. So everything from the way that the rotor is fixed to the hub, this beautiful sort of slightly sort of color distorted hub. It's just, everything is gorgeous. The fineness and the finesse of the nuts and bolts, and just take a look at that rotor. That is just a thing of absolute beauty. 290 mils in diameter. Fully carbon ceramic. Now, interesting thing about these discs is they don't actually ever wear away. You don't replace one of these when they get narrow, like you would with a metal disc. You actually have to take them off and weigh them, because as they get hot and they temperature cycle, they actually lose a little bit of their resin that still remains in there. It's only a tiny amount, but once they've lost a certain amount, that's how you know they've had their life. So you actually have to take these off, weigh them on a scale to know whether they need replacing. Obviously this car is virtually brand new, so they hardly have had any work at all, apart from when I was driving it. But that's just a beautiful piece of engineering that you can really only appreciate with the wheel off. Look inside though, and then we see more beautiful McLaren engineering. So it's a double wishbone setup at the front, but the reason I wanted to show you this is because it's such an interesting and unusual and unique layout. The lower wishbone is actually bolted to the aluminium structure that I was talking about earlier, but the top wishbone is bolted into the carbon fiber. Here's the adaptive damper with its hydraulic connection. Look how, this is like no damper I've seen before underneath any car. And these beautiful pieces here, they look almost aircraft grade. Just look how fine the quality of the materials they're made from is and how well they're made. So precise. Just lovely. And look at the thickness of the anti-roll bar. I'm sorry, that is absurd. Now, it's not actually solid, it's a tubular for weight, but it just goes to show how sturdy and stiff that front anti-roll bar is. I hope you understand why I wanted to take this wheel off, because you can't appreciate some of these finer points of engineering. Anyway, there you go. The rear suspension is a slightly different arrangement. That is almost double wishbone, but on the lower wishbone, they kind of went a bit more complicated and it became a multi-link setup. But it is a very similar arrangement. So you want that beautiful wheel articulation when you need it, but also you don't want the wheel geometry to change too much as the suspension compresses and extends. This vent here is also part of this vent, and if you look into there, you can see that's one of the low temperature radiators. There's one on each side, and there's also another one in the middle here. Now come through into the wheel arch, because we've got the wheel off, you can actually see the other side of one of those radiators, and this is where the vent exits into the wheel arch. So it's not upsetting any airflow over the surface of the body, it's putting it somewhere where turbulence is kind of expected a little bit, because that's where the wheel resides. But look up in the top of the wheel arch as well, and you can see another vent. And this is pulling air from inside the wheel arch, not like the other one, which is pulling air from outside and ends in. This now pulls air from inside the wheel arch and sends it out of here. This little vent on the outside here, that's not just for show. There's a lot of cars that have these kind of shark gill style vents on the wings or the guard. This is a real vent, and it exits down over the wing and the driver's door on this side. So what that's doing is it's trying to equalize the pressure in the wheel arch, so that one that's coming through the low temperature radiator fills and increases the pressure inside the wheel arch. This one is relieving some of that pressure. So we're actually not creating too much turbulence or pressure in the wheel arch itself. And it manages to do all that without really being particularly visible at all. I mean, these vents are visible, but they're not ostentatious or big or too spoiling of the lovely exterior aesthetics. You don't have to have it up on a hoist to see this feature, but it makes it a lot easier. True to McLaren's race car heritage, it actually has a hole in the back bumper here, partly for aerodynamics, but also so you can actually peer in and have a look at that 8-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. There it is, hanging off the back of the V6 turbo engine. And yeah, if you're behind a McLaren and down as low as one, you can actually see that through the back bumper. Really cool touch. I love how it doesn't try and hide all of the mechanical components. And there it is for all to see. Now that huge hole that I was pointing out where you could see the gearbox through, and this beautiful aluminium honeycomb shaped mesh, if you took all that out, basically the entire back of the Artura is open. And that allows all of that air that it's gulped in through the radiators and the vents and everything, most of it exits through this mass of venting and exhaust. The 600 LT, one of my absolute favorite all-time McLarens, which I haven't driven, McLaren if you're watching, had a top exit exhaust. That's not what that is. The Artura has two exhausts here. That is actually a heat chimney. Now, when they developed that V6 twin turbo engine, the turbochargers went in what's called the hot V, so they're actually on the inside of the engine. And that and a couple other features generated a lot of heat. So McLaren had to come up with a way of getting that heat out of the engine bay quickly. Now you can send it right down to the back here, but in that time you get heat soak into lots of other components. What's far better is to give it its own little chimney. And that is specifically just for heat to be vented out of the engine bay before it causes any problems. And one of my favorite features is you look out through the rear view mirror, you can actually see this little heat haze rising up from that little chimney. Super cool feature. You won't find in that engine bay illumination like you will in the bay of the 720, 750S because it's too hot. One of the McLaren engineers told me that it would melt. So you can't have illumination there. The engine bay is simply too hot. That is the McLaren Artura. Hopefully, as you've never seen one quite like before. Definitely never seen one that looks like that on the outside, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight as to some of the cool engineering and things going on under its beautiful skin. If you want to see more cars being put up on the Mad Garage hoist to show you some of their little hidden secrets and cool engineering bits, hit like and subscribe and the bell icon so you get notified every time another one of our videos goes live. And as always, thank you for watching Mad Garage.